Hi guys, so today's video is going to be your unpopular booktube opinions. Over on Instagram, I put up the question asking you guys, hey, what are your unpopular booktube opinions? And so I'm going to be reading off people's unpopular opinions about booktube. And just know that this is meant to be in good fun. It's a discussion, so if I agree with something, I'll say, oh yeah, I totally agree with that. Or if it's something that I don't agree with, I'll mention why I don't agree with it, but my intention is not to make anybody feel bad. Obviously, the whole purpose of this is for us to converse and discuss and chat, and it's not necessarily to put each other down, although I will admit some of these unpopular opinions are a little salty. Anyway, jumping into it, the first one says, when people post rant videos about, quote, booktube drama, it makes me want to unsubscribe. I completely get that. I think for myself, it depends on what kind of booktube drama video it is. If it's a video in which its purpose is to make people feel comforted after somebody was being a bully, I think that that's one thing. But if it's a thinly veiled attack against somebody else on booktube or an author or something, then that's where I would have to agree with you. That kind of stuff, I just can't help but think, okay, could we just not do that, please? The next one is from somebody who has a booktube channel, and it says, I hate filming wrap-ups. They seem required and every review I do sounds the same. And I get that because when you are discussing books in a non-spoiler way, after a while it can start to feel repetitious because you can't give away spoilers. You can't talk about specifics, so you can kind of give the synopsis. You can say, oh, this was really action-packed, or it was so exciting and it was a page-turner, or you can say it was slow, it didn't really appeal to me. So we end up having to use a lot of the same phrases and descriptions, and when you start trying to find creative ways to describe books, sometimes you start to feel cheesy because you feel like you're saying weird adjectives. But I like watching wrap-ups because I like to know what the person whose opinions I like to hear about. I like seeing what they have to say about books that I think sound interesting. So I like watching them, but I get what this person is saying about filming them. The next one says, I hate when booktubers don't have or are not active on Goodreads, which I feel like is just me in a nutshell. But I can see what you're saying. If a booktuber doesn't do reviews on their channel for the books that they read, then I 100% get why that could be aggravating, because if they're going to talk about the books they want to read and then they say, oh yeah, I read these books, and they give general thoughts about them, I could see where you might want more in-depth discussion about those books. But I don't get it if the person does do chats and reviews. In that case, it's basically the same thing twice. The next one says, we shouldn't cancel every author or booktuber that says something problematic. I 100% agree with this. I think a lot of times what we feel is problematic isn't even something everybody can agree on. I think there are some things we can, but yeah, I'm not a fan of the whole cancel culture. I think if somebody does something and they realize it came across way differently than they meant it, or maybe they just were naive about something and then they learned from it, we shouldn't hold that against them for the rest of their lives and decide that they shouldn't be allowed to continue having the careers that they have. This next one says, I don't understand why people own multiple editions of books, which this also can be applied to me. And I can explain why I personally own multiple editions of books, not trying to be snarky, but I own multiple editions of books for the same reason I own anything that's not a necessity, which is that it makes me happy. I have some kind of personal connection to the story. I don't just buy multiple editions of stuff I don't care about. That would be, well, people can do whatever they want. It would be weird for me to do that. I don't want to do that. But when it comes to the stories that I absolutely love, like Mistborn, for example, I have a strong emotional connection to that story. It means a lot to me. I really, really identify with, I feel dumb saying that, but I identify with so many elements of Vin, even though if you know Vin, you probably wouldn't think it, hearing me talk, but it means so much to me, and I am very grateful that I read that story, and I really appreciate that Brandon Sanderson took the time to write this story, and he chose this career path that isn't exactly the most steady, and so I want to support the author. Buying multiple editions does that. I like being able to take pictures of the multiple editions and put them on Instagram and be artsy with it. I like supporting the different cover artists and seeing their interpretations of the stories. The list goes on, but basically if I have an emotional connection to it, it makes me happy. That's it. I can't really speak for other people though. So there were a few different comments about big booktubers, so I'm just gonna kind of read one that encompasses those, and this one says, bigger booktubers sometimes don't have the most original content. I don't know that I agree or disagree with this. Maybe I disagree, only because I've seen channels that are really incredibly small that primarily do TBRs, wrap-ups, tags, those kinds of your more generic, typical videos, and then I've seen big booktubers do that same thing, and then I've seen people do really unique stuff, and sometimes those people are the ones that have tons of subscribers, and sometimes they have very few. So I don't know that I agree. I just think it's a preference thing, and I also don't know necessarily that originality means quality. Not saying that you're implying, the people that said this, not saying you're implying that lack of originality means that it's bad, because if I like someone's personality, I'll want to watch their vlogs, and that's cool and that's a good thing. But I think that sometimes super original content isn't always the most digestible to the general booktube viewer. Sometimes really, really unique, interesting stuff is kind of a niche thing and can only really be enjoyed by some people. So it just depends. I see where you're coming from, but I think that there are people with really typical booktube stuff, and then there are people with really unique stuff, and that ranges from 100 subscribers to 200,000. This next one's super salty, and I think it's hilarious. It says, I hate it when people forget names of characters when they are reviewing a book they quote, like, which I find super funny, and I will say this. I get where you're coming from, I completely understand, but at the same time, my mom would always tell me when I was trying to tell her a story, and I would say, hey, you know so-and-so, the actor that was in this one movie that you liked? And she'd be like, no, I don't know who that is. I'm like, yes, you do. You know, they look like this, and they were also in this movie. And she'd be like, okay, I don't know them. And it used to aggravate me to no end, because I'd be like, yes, you do, Ma. I know you know who this is. It's kind of important to the story. And then she would always tell me, honey, I have a lot to think about, and that is not one of the things I need to think about. So maybe they're forgetting the names of the characters they like, because as my mom's wisdom shows, there are more important things to remember, and our brains can only remember so much. The next one is also salty. It says, book hauls are unnecessary. Why spend 20 minutes talking about books you haven't read? All right, I can't speak on everybody's behalf. I can explain why I do book hauls. First off, book hauls and TBRs are the same video. A TBR is, here are some books I want to read, and here's what these books are about. Book hauls are, here's some books I purchased recently that I want to read, here's what these books are about. It's the same video, it's just the amount of time before you're going to read the books is different. In TBRs, it's I'm either going to read it this upcoming month or this season, or here's some books I want to read this year. Book hauls are, here's some books I want to read at some point, hence why I purchased them. So I just want to throw that out there. It's the same video in my opinion. As far as why I personally think that book hauls are genuinely good for authors and for books is because it exposes people to books they might not have heard about otherwise. So even though I haven't read it, one, I'm going to get your perspective, because if I say, this sounded really good to me, I've never read it before, then people in the comments section can say, I've read it, it was awesome, and I've never seen anybody talk about it before, which is really exciting, and I think that's really, really cool. But two, a lot of times, I'll see comments when I mention a book and I say, I've never heard anybody talk about this, I've never seen anybody mention it in a video, but I thought it sounded really cool. Sometimes I'll see people in the comments say, I've never heard of that, but it sounds so cool. I'm gonna go see if I can check it out in my library or something. That's a pretty cool feeling, because I can't read every book out there and I can't review every book out there, but there are so many books deserving of praise and recognition, and a book haul, you don't even have to read the book, right? I mean, I plan on reading the book, but it's a way to help support an author. Even if you don't end up liking it, most authors are not evil human beings. They're people who have a dream of writing stories, and at least I can say, I think this sounds really interesting, and then other people who think it sounds interesting can pick it up, and then that author can keep doing what they love. This next one I think is the saltiest of them all. It says, quote, booktubers should be renamed, quote, fantasy and YA books only, ... tubers. Okay, I respect your opinion, but I disagree with it pretty much wholeheartedly, because fantasy and YA books are books. So I play violin, it's what I do for work. If I was answering somebody who said, oh, like, what do you do? And if I said, oh, I'm a musician, and somebody's like, excuse me, you're not a musician, you're a violinist. You don't play every instrument and you don't play every style of music. I'd be like, I'm a musician because I play music. So if somebody reads fantasy, or if they read YA, or they read only one genre, or they read only one age range, they're still reading books. They're books, so I disagree. Booktubers read books. That's all I think it's required. Anyway, I will gladly do a part 2 to this if you guys are interested, but I'm gonna wrap it up there. Let me know if you agreed or disagreed with any of these, what your unpopular booktube opinions are. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all later. Bye.